keep your self-talk short, 1, 2, 3-word phrases. Use the first person when you're talking about yourself. Use the present tense, and be kind to yourself. All right, be supportive, be encouraging of yourself. Okay, those are the that's the part of the webinar that I wanted to focus on self-talk and what we say to ourselves. And I wanted to just pause for a moment to see if there are any questions. And I see right now that no one has asked a question. So if you have any questions, again, just type them in on the questions panel, and I will get to them at the end of the webinar. So right now, I'm going to move into the next part of the webinar, which is dealing with imagery. Most people like talking about imagery, and I really do too, but a lot of people don't know anything about how it works or what it means. So the best way I can describe it very briefly is to have you think about imagery working by forming a mental blueprint of what it is you need to do. When you build a house, you first create a blueprint of what it is you need to do, and then you use that blueprint as a plan for you to construct the house. Well, in a similar way, imagery forms a mental blueprint that helps you determine what it is you need to do to perform at your best. It can also be thought of as improving your muscle memory. There's been research that shows that when you imagine yourself performing physical action like performing in your sport, that you are actually contracting the muscles that are required to perform that physical activity at very minute levels. And so there's been one study in particular where they hooked up a EMG, electromyograph, that measures electrical activity in the muscles to a slalom skier. And what they found was that when she imagined the slalom course, that the muscles in her legs would contract at the times that she was imagining herself going around the gates. And when she imagined herself going through the rougher parts of the course, those spikes in the muscular activity became stronger. So think about imagery working as a mental blueprint or enhancing muscle memory. Now, it's not you can't do it instead of physical practice. If you only have an hour to train in some way and you want to get the most out of that hour, you should physically practice. Physical practice is going to make you better than imagery. But the two of them together is going to make you better than either one alone. So I think of imagery training as a vitamin supplement to your physical practice. Imagery can be used for a variety of different purposes, just like with self-talk or goal setting or intensity regulation. All these tools can be used to fix several different things. So imagery can be used to help with mental planning and mental strategy for competitions. They can be used to improve technique. It can be used to improve confidence, attention. It can be used in rehabilitation from injury and so forth. Many different uses. But here I'm going to talk about using imagery as a way to rehearse the self-talk strategies that we talked about earlier. So we can talk about using imagery in many other ways to deal with exertion pain, but I really didn't want to try to bite off more than we could collectively chew here today in a 1-hour webinar. So I'm going to talk about a way to use imagery in a complementary way with self-talk, so you can use both of them together to help your performance. All right, so here are some keys to using imagery for the management of exertion pain and fatigue. First of all, imagery is going to be most effective if it's vivid and controllable. Vivid really has to do with the clarity and the detail of your imagery. Controllability means getting your imagery to do what you want it to do. In order to make your images more vivid, you need to use all your senses. We typically think about imagery as being visualization. Some people call it visualization, but that incorrectly suggests that imagery is only seeing images, when in fact using all sensory modalities is very important to the vividness of your imagery. The most important senses are visual imagery, vision, auditory, and kinesthetic imagery. That is the experience of your muscles moving through space, and that is particularly important when we're using imagery for exertion pain and fatigue, because you really want to imagine the experience of your body at those times. Noting the details in the scene that you're imagining really improves the vividness, and practice improves both image and controllability. The controllability part is sometimes difficult for athletes, particularly if they're trying to learn a new skill or a new technique that, for example, if you're trying to iron out your pedal stroke in cycling, and you have difficulty coming over top dead center, then sometimes it's easy to imagine you're pedaling and you clunk over top dead center every time. You're repeating the way that you're doing it rather than the way you want to do it. So it just takes some practice, but if you practice imagery, you'll find that it gets more and more controllable as you go on. As I said, the kinesthetic sense, or the feeling of your muscles and your bodily sensations, are key to vividness when it comes to using imagery for pain management. And you may have heard something about using internal versus external perspectives in imagery. What that means is whether you're seeing the image as if it were through your own eyes, internal perspective, or whether you're seeing the image as if someone had a video camera that was on you from the outside, external perspective. Early research suggested that more elite athletes tended to use more internal imagery. That research didn't really get replicated. The state of the research knowledge to date is that perspective is not nearly as important as vividness and controllability, and it's probably good to be able to do both, although almost everyone has a preference toward either internal or external. But I try to teach athletes to do both, because there may be some activities that are best learned through internal or external perspectives. Okay, now on your worksheets, the third page will be entitled Create an Imagery Script Worksheet, and that's what we're going to work toward now with these 4 steps. So if you have those handouts, you could follow along. If not, again, you don't need them in front of you in order to get the information, and you can print them out and use them later. The first step in creating this imagery script is to recall the situations that are most problematic for you, the ones that put you in the most pain. The second step is to list all the details of that situation. Pretend that you're describing that situation to someone who's never been there, and you really want to put them inside your head and your body at that time. So you want to tell them all about what the surroundings look like, what you would see, what you would hear, and also what's going on internally, what you're feeling, what your thoughts are. You also want to tell them how your body feels and where it hurts and how you experience that exertion pain. So listing as many details as possible, because that's going to be the thing that really improves your vividness. Also, the third step is to list the best ways you want to cope with this situation. When you are feeling that exertion pain in this situation, what do you want to do to deal with it? There are a lot of different ways to deal with it, but the one that we've talked about most so far is self-talk, changing the negative thoughts to positive ones. There could be other things that you do from your own experience that you want to add to that, things that you do to cope with that exertion pain and get yourself psyched up to fight hard. And then finally, after you've done this, you use this information to write an imagery script. And we're going to talk about what that is in just a moment. But you're actually writing out like a one-page script that details the story of what happens all the way through. You're getting to the point of feeling pain, to experiencing the pain, to coping successfully with it, and then the finish. Okay, some pointers about using imagery to deal with pain. The first step, recalling the problem situations. I would suggest that you start with the situation that you already listed in the previous worksheet. Those are the ones that you felt initially were the most problematic for you. Start with those situations. You might add other situations as you go along that also cause you pain and fatigue. And once you come up with these situations, you also want to add a beginning to the story. That is, what led up to the time where you were in pain. If you were in a 10K race and you say that there's a hill at mile 4.5 that really gives you trouble, you want to start your story when you arrive at the race and then go through it all the way to this point where you are experiencing this exertion pain. The second step is you want to add details to your story. Again, the more details, the better. You want to make this as vivid a story as possible. What are you looking at? What are you hearing? What are you smelling? What are you tasting? How does your body feel? Where does it hurt? What's your experience of the pain? Where is it? Detail what your thoughts and feelings are about the pain. What are you saying to yourself? And the more detailed the story, the more vivid the imagery. And the more vivid the imagery, the more effective it will be.